Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Paintball Passport. I believe this will be episode 11 with my friend and a legend, Brian FOW. You guys might know him as LB. This is, one of the pinnacle players from Infamous, from Avalanche, from Image. Just a long-standing, statue player in the game, and an alumni guy that I've been looking forward to having a conversation with. This episode is not brought to you by anything in particular, but shout out to my buddy Chase Wagner, who does all the background tech stuff for the show. Shout out to Ryan Hall from Arc Anodizing for my custom gun. I should have probably had that ready for the video, but whatever. And I wanted to bring up, it's perfect for this episode. This was inside my Planet Eclipse gun that I just got.
Nice.
Can you believe that shit?
That's awesome, dude. Good stuff, man.
Yeah. For anybody who only listens on Spotify, they have these elite player cards that you pull when you open your new Eclipse gun, and I got a number 23 LB FOW card.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So what's good, dude? How you doing?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Just living life in the desert here in Arizona. The weather here is gorgeous right now. Spring training's in town, so it's a little bit chaotic. Actually going to a game on Friday, so that'll be fun. Yeah, man, it's good. We got a few people out here now. Rusty's out here. Tyler Harmon's out here. Dalton's out here.
Mike
Urena's out here. Yeah. So I think we almost have a 5-man or a squad. So.
Yeah, I'd say so. Of high caliber dudes, so that's pretty sweet. I know Victor Gamboa's out there too, and he kind of runs those
He lives 15 minutes from me. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So, do you still go play pretty frequently?
Yeah, I actually played this past weekend with my son. He's 14 now, and he's got all his own. His shit is all over my office. Actually, he came home and just dumped his gear bag, and just shit's everywhere. And my shit's over here, his stuff's over there, and so. He had a little birthday party with his buddies, and I was like, I'll go out there and dunk on you fools. So,
nice.
And then the dads obviously came and picked him up, and they're like, you play this game? And I was like, yeah, I used to play a little bit. And then they're like, well, Mr. Fow's really good. You shot me in the face. And I was like, you're not supposed to say that to your dad. But yeah, and then I'm going to play with the squad at Pro DNA.
I know, dude. I figured you were probably warming up for it. And yeah, I know. I was really looking forward to I've never played with you. Yeah. We've played on the same team now. Yeah. Actually, 2 of the same teams because I have played with Malachowski's and the Image guys in ICPL too. So, nice. But yeah, dude, unfortunately, I have an opportunity to go out of country to Poland, and it lined up where it's the same week. So. It is what it is.
Are you going for fun? Or are you going to do a clinic, or what are you doing?
No, I'm meeting my lady's family for the first time ever.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. They're all from Vietnam, but they have a house in Poland too. Okay. And I've been with her since 2019, but they never come over here to visit. So she wants to finally go visit them. She has her ability to travel and be let back in. She has a full passport from here now. Nice. So obviously she misses them. It's been 6 or 7 years since she's been home and seen them in person. And she asked me if I wanted to go. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'll take some time off and go meet them.
That's sweet, dude. Good for you. I've actually never been to, I think I've gone through Poland in all the travel, but I don't think I've ever actually spent time there. That'll be cool. Have you ever been there?
I've never been there.
Yeah, nice.
And the only reason I would ever get to go somewhere like that is paintball. But until recently, I think a year or 2 ago, they brought back the ICPL in Warsaw, which is where we're going. Yeah. But it's been a long time since they've been there. But I remember back in your heyday, they had a random Poland event or 2. But you never played those?
Never. No. I mean, gosh, I feel like I've played so many places in Europe, and over there, but never Poland. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in checking it out. That's the obviously the Malachowskis they're Polacks, so they always talk about it. And Papa Z, he was from Poland. And, it was good stuff. But you should have a great time, man. Good for you.
Yeah,
awesome.
Dude.
Bummed you can't be at the event. I'd love to have you there. But we should have a good squad.
Yeah. Well, I'm at least happy that if I'm not going to this one, you're there. I feel like the team is in good hands for like a true back guy
Right?
quarterback.
Yeah.
So
Somebody to corral those maniacs. Yeah.
that's really all it is, right? Like even in this modern day of game, like the guys I have around me are like ridiculous talent, some of the fastest guys in the league. But
Yeah.
you just need that one guy that's willing to not go do the killing himself and just like quarterbacks it.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, we don't have to talk about paintball so much, but yeah, dude, I want to tell you, man, I watched every game you guys played in Vegas, and I was super impressed how you played, dude. I mean, you definitely, you're a rock back there, man. And you have great paintball acumen. You know what I mean? You have a good idea of what's happening all the time. Your communication is incredible, and yeah, like I texted you, you got unlucky for 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than that, dude, you played your ass off. I was super impressed, man. Super
Well,
impressed.
thank you, dude. I appreciate that. It's nice that like all the hard work's finally paying off, and like I'm in the right place where it works, and we all respect each other, and we're all trying to win for the guy next to each other. So as long as I remember that, as long as I remember, shit, a guy got in a bad place, I could fight him, but I could yell to the guy on the other side, "Hey, they're in this spot, get tight." Like that's, if we all do that, we should win an event this season.
Yeah, no, I was texting with Trav too. I was like, you guys are there, man. You're it's all coming together, and I'm so glad to see it. For Trav, and obviously for the team and the brand, and you got some dogs, and I think the cohesive, the tight knit group that you do have. It's like, I've talked to Trav. He's like every year, man, like we get poached. You know what I mean? And I feel like this off season you guys didn't, and that's fantastic. And you're right there. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'll say this, and for anybody who doesn't know, like they tried, like a few teams tried it, a few of us, like Jonah got some like big offers, and a few of us got, and everybody kind of was unanimous on like, okay, it's not life-changing stuff. I'd rather just keep building this and like win with my friends, rather than jump to the next thing and always be motivated by, well, I guess I'll jump that when another bigger check comes.
Yeah, it's so true, dude. You know what I mean? And I get it. I mean, paintball it's a game we all love, but it's also, you sacrifice so much, especially from like a professional career and or just life in general. And it's a matter of trying to make ends meet to continue to play this game that we all love. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah, dude. I think that super impressed by Jonah. I was texting with his dad the other day, and it's like, that kid's got a bright future. You know what I mean? And so you guys are there, man. It'll happen.
Yeah. What I'll say I enjoy just as much as like what we get to build on the field is like the off-field culture of Infamous is great. Yeah. And it's not even just amongst the guys that are in it right now, but like, I've got to play darts with you a handful of times now and like party because of the event. And then like other alumni guys came back. Like I've played an event with LaSoya in the woods, and these are all things where when I was a kid, I'm about a decade younger than you. So when I was a young teenager and you guys were all like the elite superstars, I was like, holy shit, it would be so dope to play with, with you, with LaSoya, with Trav, with Callie, actually, as your guys' young rookie at the time.
He's an old man now, yeah.
And, Thomas Taylor has been through this team. I got to have him last season. So just all of these things have been very cool, how, like, the team is almost like, it reminds me of, like, a biker club where, like, guys stay close to it after they've retired and kind of, like, continuing to just, like, corral up the younger dudes and, like, hey, we're not trying to just make you better, but, like, stick with this. This is the way. We have the culture here.
Yeah, and it's so cool to hear that from your perspective. I mean, it's like when we started this thing, 20 years ago now, right? It's crazy to think that Infamous is 20 years old, right? And from the very beginning, we dipped out of the I guess it was technically the NXL at the time, and created Infamous for Miami Effect, and like we're like, shit, what are we going to call ourselves? And I'm pretty sure JR will take credit for it because I think he did name us, but. Like, we don't have a logo, and we literally like, Brandon Lambertson like drew some shit up and then made a stencil, and like we had like generic, I think, Empire jerseys or some shit, and we just like spray painted on our jerseys. Next thing you know, we're tagging everything, like garbage cans and bags and people and kids and probably stuff we shouldn't have been tagging. And it's great to see how it's almost like biker band or group or whatever, like almost like a little bit of a cult to some degree. I think Trav put it like that one day, but it's it'll always be my team, and super proud that got to do it and start it with some of my closest friends still to this day.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, dude, I'm proud of what you guys did. I'm honored to wear the spray painted stencil because I remember that story. I remember being a little kid and seeing that, and it just made you guys like the badass outlaws of the league, where you're like, oh, it's their name, but this makes them infamous in all of paintball because they were the first guys to be like, fuck the establishment. We want to go do what we want. Yep. Cross out the NXL logo, spray paint infamous over Miami Effect. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that Trav made the original jerseys. Those are definitely sick.
Yeah.
Super sick.
Yeah. You know what else was weird to see about that is, so they were talking that whole first day we all got together. We're having Guinnesses and shit on a Thursday at the casino around the block from us. And Trav is like, 20 years, boys, all this. And then like Brett Messer's like, this is my 7th year. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. Because to me, he seems like, I remember when he just got on the team. Yeah. And now he's like a pretty established longtime guy. And so it made me wonder, like, how many full years did you have on Infamous? I want to say it was like 6.
So we did, I think our first event was Tampa 2004. And then, I left in like at the end of 9. So almost 6 years. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's when I thought you left. I remember, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you were on the team where it became the Skeleton Squad. Yeah. Because there was like 7 of you. It was like you, Trav, Glenn,
Takamoto,
little Gino Benedicto, I think was your front guy at the time. Maybe Callie was your other young one guy.
Callie, and then we had this kid Eric Prum. So the event that you're talking about, I think, is Phoenix 2008, where we played the Russians in the finals, and we. So like the story was, I mean, like real quick, it's like we showed up at 10. And this was before, there was a game in between games, right? So you had like a minute. I think it was a minute, maybe it was 90 seconds, something like that, to turn over games. So you kind of would run lines, right, at the time. And, John, we got there and JR got like the Ebola virus or some shit. Like he was just dying, and he never left the hotel. Like from Thursday to Sunday mid-afternoon, he never left the hotel room, right? He was dying. Like we had him quarantined in a room. Posey, our coach at the time, he had a death in the family, so he had to leave like Friday morning. This little kid, Eric Prum, who's from like Callie's area at the time, he like pulled his hamstring, so he couldn't play. I feel like there was like, I think Arnold Francisco at the time, he was one of the guys that grinded. And so it was like me, Glenn, and Trav played like every single point like on Sunday, and that's when games were like, I think like 50 minutes long, some stupid shit, you know what I mean? And games were like 17-14, it's like, and so we played like every single point, ended up winning the whole thing. But that's when it was like we did it with 6-7 guys or something like that. But that would probably go down in the books. It's probably my favorite win. Just because of all the, well, number one, you're playing Russian Legion, who were dominating in NXL at that time. And then 2, they're stacked against us in terms of odds, just down players. And, John, is obviously one of the best to ever do it. It's nice to have him on the field. Yeah. he was not. And then Lasoya, actually, he wasn't with us at the time, but, Posey had to go. And then we were just like coaching ourselves for like Friday and then midway through Saturday, like Chris started helping us, and he was in our pit coaching, and ultimately, like I can remember like it was yesterday, dude. Like there was like 50 seconds left in the game, and we were tied, and I think the Russians were gonna play for overtime, and Chris says like, "Don't fucking play for it." He grabs me by the fucking head, and he's like, "Don't play for fucking overtime." He's like, "Shoot that motherfucking corner and go to the X and wrap and go through." And I was like, "All right," like I just got the chills thinking about it, but. Did it, and I think we hung with like 7 seconds or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
What an impressive finish. It's funny because I remember the event too, just being a kid watching it, and I thought the finish was obviously impressive. It's Russians, it's like a photo finish with barely any time left, but it was just as impressive that you guys, because Infamous has always been an aggressive team, you guys were playing a lot of points. Like
Yeah.
every match was like a lot of fucking points with 7 dudes. And I just remember even thinking it during the time, even in the earlier Sunday games, I was like, my God, this team is so gritty. Like the level of fucking not giving up, just the tenacity here, where you could see. I mean, it wasn't like everybody was a superstar athlete at the
Yeah.
time. Like I'd go as far to say Trav was never a superstar athlete. Like he had,
Right, yeah.
like tough real man strength and stamina, but
Yep.
like you guys, I could tell people looked like they were gassing,
Oh, dude.
but
I mean, it was
everybody's just
exhausting.
fighting through it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like you just find another gear to get into, and I feel like we felt like it's almost like fate, and I feel like that helped, propel us to obviously to win. But it's like shit, you know what I mean? Like odds are stacked against us. We have nothing to lose at this point, you know what I mean? And it's like go out
Mm-hmm.
there and just be reckless, and and it ended up working out in our favor. And it was a good event, man. That was a good night too. That evening, as I'm sure you can imagine.
100%. Well, dude, this is a great introduction, but I guess to segue to more of the topic that I like hearing about. Um, I love hearing travel stories. This is like my I, I don't know about you when you were younger, because I could think of the guys who were vets in your age, like the decade above. But
Mm-hmm.
like for me, I was always the kid in my area where if there was a vet nearby and we were like done playing, I'm like that kid that wants to sit in front of their rocking chair at the campfire and be like,
Oh yeah.
tell me the cool shit. Like I want to hear it all. And so eventually I was like, okay, I just need to record this so other people can hear this shit too. But dude, I feel like you traveled during the heyday of travels,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like you were pioneering it.
Yeah, man. I mean, this was like in the early days. We would have events here before there was like Super Seven and then XL or whatever. There was the Millennium. It was called the
Mm-hmm.
Millennium. I don't know what it's called now, or it's obviously like the European Expo or whatever. But
Yep.
so we played like 15 events almost, and 5 of them are overseas, right? And so we got to do shit that a lot of players don't typically get to do now. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's kind of a bummer because it was so epic to be able to, especially like when you're young. I mean, shit, I was in my 20s, and to be able to go overseas with your buddies, and it's not so much like all the shit on the field, like between the lines, right? It's all the dumb shit and fun stuff that you do,
Yeah.
on a plane, traveling, getting a rental car and driving on the wrong side of the road, and trying to drive a stick and you don't know how to drive a stick, and can't speak the language, and you're just these reckless, wild American kids that are just probably causing fucking mayhem for these poor people that the poor citizens of wherever the hell we were, you know. Um, but yeah, we gosh, I mean, my passport filled up really fast.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask to start it. How old were you the first time you went to an international event?
I was definitely a teenager. I couldn't legally drink here. That's how I know that. But I think I was in high school. So I would have been like 16, 17. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Yeah.
And what team and what event was that?
It would have been Revolution, which was before Trav and I went to Image. So it was like Fusion, Revolution, Detroit team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we went to France. It was the first like big. It was in Toulouse, France, same place that it was for a long time. But yeah, it would have been Toulouse, and we went in Richmond, Italia. I'm sure you know who that name. He was the
Yeah.
owner of, I think it was called Pro Caps at the time, or Diablo Paintballs. It ultimately became Draxus, and so he was a big sponsor of ours, and we didn't cost us anything, so that was even more amazing. We stayed in this like dope ass hotel, and like the All Americans were there, and we were there as Revolution, and I think the Iron Men may have been there. Yeah, like so I was 16, 17, because I graduated young, so I probably was 16, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is like a whole new story that I've gotten from anybody before because I've had Mike on recently and I think he said he went and he was 20, which is
Yeah.
like you're not a full on adult yet, but like, you can drive, you can blah blah blah, you're in college, but at 16, like was that also your first time out of the country, period?
Well, so I grew up in Detroit, right? And so, and I had a fake ID. So we go to Canada, you could drink at 19 in Canada. So we would go. I lived 20 minutes from the border, so we'd go over to Canada all the time as teenagers. So that was technically out of the country, but like
Gotcha.
first time ever overseas, yeah, that would have been France. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, that's the way I counted. Just because I lived in Buffalo, so I was 15 minutes from Toronto.
yeah,
I had the same upbringing as you, where it's like, well, sneak across the bridge
yeah,
and I can legally sit at a bar.
yeah,
But like Canada feels to me just like the U.S.
yeah,
And that first time you go across to Europe or Asia or wherever,
yeah.
this is also, I'm guessing, your first time doing it like as a trip without your family.
Oh yeah,
Or
no, I mean, so I started really, really young, right? And so like I couldn't drive, obviously, when I started. Like I turned professional at like 14, 15ish, you know what I mean? And so I couldn't drive, so like I had to have like Posey come pick me up, like which was not convenient for him, to get me to practice or get me to like local events. Or I'd have to like sometimes my parents would drop me off at practice. But yeah, I mean, I think what helped is my parents knew Posey really well. They knew Travis really well. And they knew some of the other like older dudes on the team because my parents were super involved and they would come to events whenever they could.
that's
So
cool.
it wasn't like they just were like, okay, yeah, you can go to Europe or go to France and call me later. So there was, I think that helped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, because otherwise, I mean, it's not you know every day that because a teenager or 16-year-old, your parents just let you go off to Europe and with a bunch of dudes that they don't really know or strangers. Like, do you guys have a place to stay? Do you know how to even use a passport? Do you know how to get through international
Hmm.
travel? Do you know what customs is? That kind of shit. So it's like, um, yeah, but it was that was an eye opener, right? And we did really well. I think we took like third or some shit. We didn't win. I think the All Americans won, but I think we ended up taking like third. So it was like we're like, wow, we've made it. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, you're like an international superstar at that point.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was rad, dude. It was definitely, it opened up your eyes to like, holy shit, there's more to paintball than just California and
Hmm.
Chicago and World Cup and the East Coast event. But
Well,
yeah, it
yeah,
was.
when you first got on the team, and like this is your first going pro too at 14, did you know that those were going to be like some of the perks? Like, were you like the type of kid like I was, where you're like, I'm doing this because someday I'm going to get to travel the world doing this?
Yeah, I mean, just like you, dude. Like I wanted to be around, the greats, like I like the way you say like the decade above me, right? And those were like Greg and Tommy Malachevsky, and
Hmm.
Richie was a little bit closer to age than me, but like Lane Wright and LD, Lorenz Dickinson, and the Rennick Millers and the Danny Loves and the Mike Brunos and the Saranskis. So those guys that I would just like, I wanted to be around them. You know what I mean? I wanted
Hmm.
to soak up everything that that they had to offer, and just obviously it was when print magazines were huge, and you could you look forward to getting a new PGI or Paintball Sports or whatever the
Yep.
hell they're PCRI or something like that, and then you would see like European events. But and I was like, gosh, like I want to go over there because I want to see how we match up. You know what I mean? Because like there was obviously like Bonsai Bandits and like I can't even remember like the Ugly Ducklings and some other teams over there in Europe that they were the big shit in Europe. And I was like, gosh, I wonder how we could play against them. And so it was great to once we knew we were good enough was when we were like, okay, we've got to go over and compete. And it's tough, dude. It's expensive as shit, right, to go over
Yeah.
there. It's not like a domestic event, you know what I mean, where it's obviously it's a plane ride to Orlando, right? It's like
Hmm.
you gotta commit. And it's like the time, right? You have to commit. It's like 7 days essentially, right? Because you can't show up on Friday and leave Sunday night.
Yeah.
Um,
So what did that look like as because I know what it's like to travel now. But back then, from what I imagine, there were bigger budgets on pro teams. So like, your team owner comes to you and goes, hey, you're coming to this event in France with us. And 16-year-old you, like, what's the deal? Do you have to pay for anything, or is it, hey, free ride, just get a plane ticket? Or
I think I think initially, I think Richmond covered everything. Maybe, but like I think we had to pay for like half the plane ticket or something like that for our first event. But like he had just opened like Diablo, right? And so
yeah,
he was the event paint sponsor. So he, I'm sure, finagled, something like entry fee, or obviously paint was taken care of. He picked up hotels, so we didn't have to pay for much. I mean, we're pretty fortunate in that regard, right?
yeah,
So, it was like spending money, right? And it's not like I could go party. I mean, and I wasn't like really in that zone. I was all focused, like paintball, 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 right?
mm,
It's like no, you can't have fun, right? From the field to the hotel to the restaurant to the field, right? And so,
gotcha.
yeah, and then after that, yeah, once we got you know on like when we got to Image in Avalanche, then JT was just kicking down a ton of
Hmm.
cash, and I was just like, I didn't run the books or the budget. Like, I mean, I did that on Infamous for a long time, but it's like I had no idea. I was like, I got a plane ticket. Like it's like paper tickets, like you got in the mail, right? I'm like, all right, I have to be here at this time to get on this flight to go to fucking Portugal. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
yeah, it was that was we were very 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 privileged, and it was not everybody gets to do it in that capacity because it is a time consuming event and it's expensive as shit, and but it's I feel it's kind of a bummer, and I don't know all the like what you guys can play over there and what the guys over there can play here, if it's only like one guy or two guys, but it's kind of a bummer that we can't send our squads over there really and
Hmm.
compete. You know what I mean? That's I hope that maybe you know Tom Cole can figure out a way to somehow at least like one event. You know what I mean? Like a true World Cup. You know what I
I
mean? That
agree.
rotates. From it doesn't have to be in the States. It could be fucking Switzerland for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, that would be pretty sick.
Dude, we're on the same page. I already know it's not going to happen where we won't get full squads going to NXL Europe, is what it's called, because what he's doing is like he's trying to unify paintball across the globe, which I believe in it.
Yeah,
I'm happy Tom's doing this. He's the guy to do it. And there's NXL Europe, NXL South America, NXL, blah blah blah. But I agree, it would be sweet if rather than World Cup being basically the fifth event for USA NXL,
yeah,
if there was just like this one standalone World Cup in a good centralized location, like whatever country just happens to be cheapest for the most countries to fly into,
yeah,
it could be fucking anywhere, but it would just be sweet to get like this global scale, and you'd have like whatever. It could be pro or it could be open. Just an
yeah.
open division.
Make it open. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think that would be sweet.
That would be. I mean, I feel like that would be like talk about like just badass bragging rights to win that you're the world fucking champs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like you can't contest that.
I
You can
agree.
win World Cup, but like you're the world champions.
World champion. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. And I'll say there are certain leagues where you still kind of can do that. Like it's the workaround. Like there's 507 league in Panama is open division. It's
okay.
I think it might be on APPA, but it's one of those weird ones where they have really high point like limits. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like supposed to be a D2 event, but you could bring your full pro team there. But like if you win that,
Yeah,
like you're just doing what you should have done, and then
yeah,
it probably discourages more teams of that area from signing up, because I mean our mindset would have been like, oh fuck, I hope to play Infamous or Aftershock
yeah,
or wherever when we were kids.
yeah.
But a lot of people nowadays, they're like, wait, so now I have zero chance of winning,
Right.
and they just don't want to pay the money. And especially the one way I get that is like they're in countries where people have less expendable income.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they want to try to at least be competitive. So there would have to be like a push to be like, hey, this is a one off that's open division. You will get all the best teams from every country. And
Yeah.
that's what it's for.
Yeah. No, that'd be sick, dude. That'd be sick.
Yeah. So yeah, that man, we'll I don't know. I'll talk to somebody about this.
Yeah, make it happen, Joe. Make it
yeah,
happen.
I
You could
hope
be the
so.
paintball ambassador for the globe.
Oh man, the guy who was really good at that was Tim Montresor.
Yeah.
He was just
that's a fact, brother. That's a
Mr.
fact.
Worldwide Ambassador. And I'll still randomly while traveling find like the sign that you're coming into that paintball park, and it'll be like Tim Montresor on the sign. And it'll be all different eras of him. Like I've seen him from like 2010 or 11 Impact on a sign in some, random desolate field in another country. So it'd be cool to do that. But yeah, you got to be like the right person with a lot of accolades and a big network. And he was that guy. So I'm just here to live it and share the stories, man.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah. So what I wanted to get back to, because I have only got to know you recently. I've been a fan of yours when you were a player back then for forever, but I was just a kid. And before that, when I wouldn't be in paintball and you were a kid, like how you said you graduated early, but like how did you make it all happen? Did you go right into college, or did you have a job, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, so that was tough, right? Because I played football, basketball, and baseball, right? And so obviously paintball is on Thursday at the time was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So like there was times where I would have to, either make a decision that I was going to have to miss like the high school sports games, right? And or miss like Friday of paintball, right? And so that way you could do that. Like World Cup always sucked because I'd have to get to World Cup late. When I was in high school, because I had Friday night football games, right? And so, that was tough in high school. But then once I got out of high school, I went to college. I went to Michigan State, and your freshman year, you typically don't get to like schedule your classes however you want them to be, right? So I had to do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. That was class Tuesday, Thursdays, and so I would obviously miss class quite a bit to go to practice and or overseas or to events, and then I kind of like would be able to adjust my schedule as I became like a sophomore and junior and senior, and I wouldn't schedule Friday classes, and I try to schedule like late Monday morning classes, and that was it was a juggling act. But the other thing that's kind of was a bummer is that we would practice all the time in Chicago and go play Shock, right? When I was really freshman, all through high school, and then all like freshman, sophomore year before I joined Image. And, so you would like leave either Friday night to drive down to Chicago to practice, or get up super, super early and drive down Saturday morning and then play all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then drive back. So I missed like a lot of like fun time at college, you know what I mean? Like partying and, hanging out with your college roommates. Like we always had like sick ass houses that were at great locations that, it's like all my buddies would be like, getting out of class on Thursday or whatever, and cracking beers, and like I'm packing my gear bag and, driving 4 hours to fucking play paintball.
I get it.
Yeah. And so that was, but I wouldn't have traded it for the world, dude. So yeah, right out of high school, right into college, and did that for 4.5 years. And then was fortunate enough to, get a job with War Game Products at the time, which is no longer a company. And then from War Games went to National. National became Key. Key became Core or GI or whatever the hell it is now. You know what I mean? And so it was nice to be able to work in the industry because, like as it's like not most people don't know like what like competitive paintball is and the requirements and demands that it has to take, I mean, shit, you guys were in Vegas for like what, fucking 10 days or 12 days or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but it's very fortunate to work in the industry during my entire really, adult professional career.
That's cool. Yeah. I was figuring it was something like that. I didn't know your entire background in the industry, but yeah, I think, paintball has this horrible catch-22 in that it is fucking expensive, right? So you need to make money to play paintball. Like, I couldn't even fathom the amount of money I spent in like the years that I was stuck in semi-pro alone, just trying to play both days every weekend and paying for all my shit, playing as much as a pro does, but it was all out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
So you need money to do that. But the problem is, if all you do is, let's say, just one league like NXL, and there used to be two, right? You'd play PSP and NPPL. But if you only played one league, you would have to tell a job that was going to hire you, let's say at a college, like, hey, here's my resume. And they're like, okay, good. We like it. And
Yeah.
you're like, I
Yeah.
can never work weekends. And they're
Right.
like, okay. And you're like, also, I need about 5 weeks off a year. And they're like,
Hmm.
we give 2 weeks vacation time
Yeah.
a year and maybe a
Right.
couple sick days. And you're like, well, I need 5 because
Yeah.
I have there'll be these 5 different summer weeks that I'm just completely gone in some other city to play a tournament. And then most of the time that job is like, all right, fuck off, kid. We're gonna
Yeah.
look for
Yeah.
someone who can actually
Beat
work
it.
here.
Yeah. Beat it. Yeah. No, for sure, dude. For sure.
Yeah, the only reason I have a good career now is because I work for paintball people, and
Yeah.
like I think that's the good thing about paintball as a network is like if you didn't work in the industry, eventually you've played with enough people that if you're like, hey man, I just need a job, can someone hook me up?
Yeah.
One of your paintball people will reach out and be like, I'll hire you, and it could be
Right.
whatever. It could be a starting position, like they might own a landscaping company or something. But the point is, when you're like, yo man, I got to leave Wednesday for this tournament, they know like
Yeah.
they're probably going too, so they're like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, if you can find a niche in the game and, to your point, hook up with a buddy, like regardless of whatever company it is, you know what I mean? At least there's the understanding, okay, this is the world we live in, right? Versus like, you go work for fucking Google, they're going to be like, huh? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that's definitely a big perk. And I think that's, not to segue, but I think that's like a big, you know, belief in what Travis has done with the brand, whether it's Pro DNA or Infamous. And, yeah, he's like, look, I want to make a company that, number one, I can stay in the game and continue to grow the sport, and then have my buddies have a home and allow
Mm-hmm.
them to continue to play the game at the highest level. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah, it's very cool. Like the more and more I've gotten to know Trav, I've like talked to him, friendly for years just from
Yeah.
being in the league. But the more I've known Trav from this past year and now one extra event is like he's a pretty selfless dude. Like
Yeah.
he, of course, is a business owner, so he should get his, and he parties hard and celebrates it and all that. But
Yeah.
he makes people like their own custom lines. Like he
Yeah.
just gave Nate and Jonah lines because like it seems like he realizes the more I can get back from like the community supporting my team through my company, the more I can just hook up my team and
Yep.
have the team like be, balling out and not struggling and not one of those. I mean, we can probably all think of there's a couple teams in the bottom 5 that like those guys still pay their own way. They
Yeah.
still like pay their own flights and stuff out of pocket. And it's like, dude, that is it's already hard to compete to win in this division. But if
Yeah.
you have to like pick up overtime hours to afford to get to the event or to buy that extra practice paint, like good luck, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, you're absolutely right, dude. Absolutely right.
Yeah. So, maybe not in that early years because you're the young rookie on the team, but once you're like an established guy and it's like, oh yeah, Brian, we're taking him up to whatever each next one was, effect, then were you ever like a paid guy in those years when money was just getting thrown around?
So early on, JT gave us a very good amount of cash, and we got like, I don't know if it was like $1,000 an event, or like $500 an event, but nothing like, really like, I don't know, some like, whatever Mouse's deal or J Rab's deal, nothing like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But we definitely had enough, cash in our pocket to, to run around and have fun. And, it didn't cost us obviously anything at all. And everything was always on the arm, like whether it was meals or, beers or whatever. But nothing to the capacity that I think that you're asking in that way. But but the other thing too is like, working in the industry. Like obviously, I had a job, like, and that was making an income and making a living, working in the industry, which is again a big perk. And so that we I ran the books for Infamous from really '04 to '09, and we got again a good amount of money, and there were guys that did get paid because we wanted to keep them around. I mean, JR is a perfect example of that. And I would I never needed. I mean, I shouldn't. That's going to sound arrogant, but like I didn't want money from the team. You know what I mean? I wanted to be able to fund the team. Allow us to be as competitive as we could be, go to every event that we wanted to go to, and then also pay players where we could. And so myself personally, I was never like a paid guy. but I, again, fortunate to work in the industry, and that was, I guess I was technically paid.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no, that's a good explanation. It wasn't really to get at if you were like one of the big money guys, but it was more relating to the travel thing. Like, I know that a lot of people have traveled because they had been paid through paintball, so they just didn't need the extra time to work a career.
Right.
But since you were working in paintball, you didn't really have to worry about that. But like, when you would travel, would you just go in and out for the event, or have you been one of the guys who stayed extra? You did the week after, you backpack it.
A little bit of both, you know what I mean? It depended on, like, sometimes I could convince like whoever I was working for at the time that I was like visiting customers or whatever, you know what I mean? But for the most part, like through college, like I had to get back,
Yeah.
and I can know like some of the guys that, were on the team at the time would stay, later and go tour that country or bounce around to a couple different countries, which I was always jealous of, you know what I mean? Cause I was like, shit, they're just going to see shit that, I probably like, cause it's like you can say, oh yeah, you've been to, London or you've been to Paris, but like, are you really in Paris? You know what I mean? It's like, like you fly into Paris, Charles de Gaulle for, you're there for an hour and then you're out, 3 hours outside of the city. So
yeah,
that was, I feel like that was one of the perks of being able to travel overseas, when you had a chance, is to go see shit that you ordinarily wouldn't see. You know what I mean?
100%.
Which makes it so amazing, right? And like I remember, like one of the coolest trips I think that we did. We went to Malaysia for, gosh, I want to say like, I don't know, maybe a week or something like that. So it's crazy. It's like, you may have heard about this or may not have. Like the minister of tourism from Malaysia was a female, and she loved paintball.
Mm-hmm.
And so she paid for 4, I want to say 7-man teams at the time, but I feel like we played 5-man, but I think we took 7 guys. She paid for 4 teams. It was us, the Bushwhackers. I want to say like Excessive, or I know Rich was there. I think Thomas was there. And then another team. There's like 50 of us, dude. This woman or the Malaysian government paid for us to come over and basically like demonstrate paintball. You know what I mean? But so that was like, so I was in Detroit at the time. So Detroit to LA to Taipei to, I want to say
Kuala
Lumpur, yeah. And that's dude, that's 25 hours of travel right there.
Oh yeah.
And we weren't flying up front either. We were in the back. You know what I mean? But it was free. But it didn't matter because there was fucking 50 of us on the goddamn airplanes. We all met in LA. You know what I mean? That's where we launched from. And so it's like, that was a party in itself.
Oh yeah.
And then we go there. I don't even know. I think we played like 2 games or some shit. You know what I mean? And I just remember being hungover as fuck because John and I drank 1,000 Tiger beers. And then like we played like 2 or 3 games. I don't even think like there was a winner. And then we had to play like 1 game with her, and then like you couldn't shoot at her, and then she just ran around with us, and she shot somebody and like grabbed the flag and like hung it. Like there's a huge crowd of like Malaysian people, you know what I mean? And everyone's cheering, and there's a big parade, and and then that was like, I think we played like 1 day, but like the other like 5-6 days, dude, like we were in Kuala Lumpur for like a couple nights, sick ass city, just cruising around there, being idiots. And then like the other half of the trip, she got us like these bungalows, like right on the water, like literally right on the water. Like you had to like make sure like the doors, it was a bungalow, right? So the doors didn't really lock. And like the fucking monkeys would like figure out how to get into your bungalow. Like we had to like tie a fucking duct tape around the door. They'd fucking go in there and they'd steal your shit, dude.
Oh yeah.
And, you probably are familiar with that, you know what I mean? And then like, you're just like, and then everything's like open, you know what I mean? It's very bohemian, and you're at breakfast and like those little fuckers just run up on your table and like grab your orange juice or some shit. And so, that trip was so epic because number one, like we were playing paintball, but we really weren't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was more of like a vacation, and you were there with like obviously your closest dudes on the team. And then, like, obviously, we all have a tendency to, motherfuck each other on the field once in a while. But then, like, you get out of the, you get off the field, and you're on a giant travel tour bus, and everybody's got a case of beer, you're just cruising around and going to see shit you never would see. Go and just have an absolute blast. That trip was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, they're really going to pay for all this shit. And I think Chuck Hench and Dynasty was there, I think too. I think Chuck Hench like set it all up or some shit with the minister, the tourism ministry. That was probably one of the coolest that I would say that, and then I think we went to Singapore for a couple days.
Like right after it from there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Sick.
Yeah. It was ridiculous, dude. Like I was like, this can't. I'm like, what's the catch? You know what I mean? I'm like, what do we owe? Who do we owe?
Yeah. Luckily, and it's just like in our country where like sometimes rich guys just like paintball, and thank God for them. Thank God for the Sarges, the Barts, the Joey Batsawas, all these guys who like have money to play with and go, I love this fucking sport.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is in other countries, those people are generally like really wealthy. Like you don't play paintball in Mexico or Asia unless you own like a hotel or like a restaurant line. So those people are like, and because everything's cheaper there, their money's exponentially bigger. So when they want to have fun and play, they're like, oh, I'm just going to bring the whole tournament to me.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, essentially, that's exactly what you did. Like we had like every team had like a handler. You know what I mean? That like it was like a point person as far as like communication and be here and reservations and restaurants and like there was like a whole like this one night they did like this huge like party, like I would call it a luau, but that's not the right term, but it's like they're like smoking a pig and there's fucking fire dancers and there's like just hundreds of people that you don't know who half of them are, but it's all for us, right? Which is pretty epic. You know what I mean? If you think back on it, and and they thought it was the best thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we were, I hope we represented the United States as to the best of our ability, but I mean, I'm pretty sure, we definitely had our fair share of fun. But yeah, that trip was ridiculous, dude. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. I just remember like there's this two giant like I want to say Greyhounds, but they were like luxurious like giant ass buses, right?
Yeah.
And like we're just fucking throwing dice and playing cards and shotgunning beers and what I mean? Like just like no idea what we were doing, where we were at, where we were going, and didn't care. You know what I mean? Didn't ask questions. Just like okay, just make sure you're on the bus, right?
Yeah.
Just be on the bus.
Buckle in, get ready for the ride of your life. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to take your wallet out. You're just like invited here to experience it for what it is. And I'm curious, do you happen to remember the woman's name that brought everyone there?
Gosh, dude, I'm sure I could find it because I mean I kept so much shit. I mean I have like stacks and stacks of paintball propaganda and print and all this stuff, but I don't. If you said it, I would probably know it. But
is it Foz or Foslin?
That sounds familiar. I can tell you she was really, really, obviously they're not big people, but she was really, really tiny, like really tiny, like almost like childlike, dude. Like and I was like, this is the person, right?
Yeah.
But she was a big deal. You know what I mean? It's like she was like, I mean, essentially like like it'd be like having a big politician, here in the States, or somebody that you really that about. I mean, everybody adored her, and she was the sweetest thing in the world, right? You know what I mean? And but it was just so bizarre, dude. It's like this woman likes paintball. You know what I mean? It's like, why does she like paintball? You know what I mean?
Asia has a few stories like that. Like, it's funny that we seem to have got to live like the same experience, and it repeats over the years. Unfortunately, it's not an every year thing. There's been gaps in it, and then COVID made it stop, and I don't think it's going on right now. But my first time going in 2015 was to Malaysia. It was that island called Langkawi. I'm not sure if you got to know that, but
I feel like we may have been there. But yeah, I mean,
you probably went there because it's like a 20-minute puddle jumper flight from Kuala Lumpur. So most times when people go there, they go to that because that's like the fun tourist island. And I don't mean tourist like big resorts or like tourist trappy, but it's just where you go if you want to like have a really good time for cheap and see beautiful beaches and stuff.
Yeah.
But we landed and there was an opening day ceremony that people weren't even playing yet. The prime minister himself of Malaysia was there. So this dude was brought in. Like,
Yeah.
they're that good at promoting a sport in their, it's a small country too, where it's like, hey, we're going to have this thing. I remember landing and seeing paintball banners in the
Yep.
airport, and it was like this date to this date on Langkawi Island. And then I meet the prime minister. I get to shake his hand, chat with him for a bit. And then the next time I was brought back in 2019, I played for Team Malaysia, and Malaysia's team was KTM. And I'm like, this sounds familiar. I meet the owner. Her name is Faz. That's why I asked this. And maybe it was different people, but I love Fazlin. She was such a great owner. She is also the owner of the Malaysian branch of KTM motorcycles. So, like,
Okay.
every KTM motorcycle and dirt bike in Asia is made by this woman's company, and she happens to like playing paintball. So she brought over like, me, Harrison, Ben, Fedorov, Mishka, like a host of people, and paid for everything for 2 weeks straight. Like, every meal, every tour bus ride, every excursion or like weird tourist thing, or our mopeds.
Yeah.
She was just like going crazy on us. And yeah, it was the same thing where it's like, it's a pinch me moment, because you're like, all I'm doing is playing paintball. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm pretty good. I guess you'd want us American guys on your team, but like the fact that you're just gonna like treat us out to like, hey, enjoy my paradise for 2 weeks and live my lifestyle like I do, to come play a game with you is just, it was outrageous.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, like switching continents and countries, but I was always like the Millennium events, dude. Like when it was the Millennium, and what I mean, it was 7-man because we were 10-man at the time. There was no X ball, and obviously 5 and 10-man here, but the Millennium was a 7-man. Like their events were just so dope. Like they were either in soccer arenas or like the plushest grass you've ever played on in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and like this like huge vendor village, and like beer gardens and like grandstands, and like they did it right. And I'm like, we're playing in some fucking backwoods lot,
Yeah.
in some shitbag field, you know what I mean? That we're the best of the best, but over there, like the talent gap was like we were very, very much, it was much, much larger than it is now. Um, but they just took it so I feel like they took it to a whole nother level. I mean, WDP, dude, like holy, I'm sure you've heard about WDP Heaven.
Oh yeah.
Like that, they're we were Avalanche. Like once we got to from Image to Avalanche, like we had obviously an Angel team. Dude. We were fucking royalty, dude, like royalty. And there was like the WDP Heaven that everyone can see, and then Heaven.
Yeah.
That lots of bad shit happening in Heaven. and and just how we were treated, but they just did it. They did it like they did it right. I remember even like one year at World Cup, like I don't know what year it was, but WDP brought in like I want to say like so many like truckloads of beach sand to create Heaven. You know what I mean? And like brought in like obviously there's palm trees in Florida, but they brought in their own like palm trees, and they like fucking brought in like jacuzzis and shit, and like it's all like walled off, and you could only get in if you was either us and like Avalanche and Dynasty, and then obviously we would always like other tiny like the Iron Man guys would be like, dude, get me into Heaven. I'm like, we can't.
No die nerds.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, dude, like that they overseas they just did it. They did it right, man, and like it was like an event, and like you saw shit in the airport about paintball, you know what I mean? And you saw signage as you're driving the paintball in the city, and like they do a great job of promoting it. I think it's getting better here in the States, but they were way ahead of us back then. You know what I mean? In terms of like it was an event. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a tournament.
Yep. It was like an entertainment thing too, where people that weren't even involved, or people that aren't already going to it, or their family could see this big billboard and be like, and it'd be like seeing Cirque du Soleil's in town. You're like, oh, it's just something I could go do. Why not like walk by and add to the foot traffic for at least one of the days?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, I feel like they did so such a good job. Gosh, I remember this one time we were in, I think we were in fucking Sweden. And I think it was like a Sunday night, we're at the players' party in like, the Lundqvist, Alex and Max Lundqvist.
I do.
Yeah. So like Alex is like a fucking mega mogul superstar model, right?
Yeah.
Like he's literally on billboards here in my fucking mall. But still to this day, I shit you not, Joe. So we were in their hometown. I think it was Stockholm or something like that. But we were in their hometown in Sweden. We go to this players' party. I'm pretty sure Lasoya roofied everyone with narcotics. Because I remember like being with Oliver at a train station at like 6 a.m, like the sun's coming up, like we have no fucking clue where we're at, and like we have to like figure out how to get to the hotel to get our bags, and Oliver's like, let's just stay, and I was like, okay, like whatever, man, you know what I mean? And they did it right, like their players party, like it was like a players party, but it wasn't just like paintball people, it was like regular civilians, and then obviously Alex is just a walking magnet for females. It was, I mean, it's like I think Oliver and I ended up getting a train ticket. We got on the train and went somewhere, and then ultimately we just happened to be like right in front of our hotel at one point, and we just went inside and grabbed our bags and went right to the fucking airport. But it was those were like, that's like where memories are made. You know what I mean? I feel like paintball here now, and rightfully so, is very, very regimented, very rigid. You guys are all, at the highest level of fitness, and you're taking care of your bodies, and you're not partying during the events, and you're very, very focused, and you're watching film and all this other stuff that goes on in the sports world. But when you got to go overseas, it was just like almost like a vacation, but at the same time, it's just such a great experience to say that you're traveling with your buddies. I mean, that's like, again, I loved to play the game, obviously, and loved to compete, but like, the fun was just like hanging with your homies, you know what I mean? And, just being on that flight and, getting into a foreign land, that, you don't, like Amsterdam, like, holy shit. I remember the first time we went to Amsterdam, I was like, this place is shit. Like there's shit going on here that, obviously it's Amsterdam, right? But it was like, I mean, I remember, again, it's fucking Lasoya. Like every time he's around, this shit happens, right? And
it's true.
Yeah. And it's like, we're in some coffee shop, and the next thing, Lasoya orders tea, and it's fucking like, oh, like why are we ordering it's fucking mushroom tea? And like 45 minutes later, everyone's, tripping balls. It's crazy. All Lasoya's idea. Lasoya and Rocky to that. But yeah.
What's funny is he told me, he's like, he wanted to come on this show and share some of his stories, but he's like, you should have me and LB on together, because that would be a riot. And I was like, dude, I would love to do that podcast.
Yeah, we'll do. I would absolutely do it. Yeah, that would definitely be a very R-rated podcast.
That's fine.
Yeah, it would be fun to be able to like see like his version of what he thinks happened, and then what really happened.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But before we glance over it,
yeah,
because I've had this story myself, and somebody else said recent ones. Tell me about mushrooms in Amsterdam. Probably your first time there too. A foreign land with the craziest language ever all around you, and street signs that are 80 letters long. Yeah. How was that?
So it was fucking awesome, by the way. But so it was like us as Avalanche, and then the trauma kids were there, because I remember Duder almost died, and I brought him back to life with a Coke, like a can of Coke, not Coke, can of Coke. And I think the Iron Man, yeah, because Mike was there, Rich was there. But so like, this was when like a lot of us went to these events. And of course, like, I think it was one of the first times they had Amsterdam. So everyone's like, oh, fuck, I'm going to Amsterdam, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cool ass city, obviously, like the whole red light district, and then like the canals. And I didn't know like what to expect. And I wasn't like, I mean, I'm a drinker, you know what I mean? And like, I never was like, I didn't smoke, and I didn't drink. And, but I'm like, oh, if everything's legal here, right? And so that makes it legal. And, and there's coffee shops in every corner, right?
Yep.
And so like Lasoya, of course, like picks one out, like we get seated and there's like a whole menu and like, I don't know what half the shit is, but Lasoya is a walking pharmacy. And so he was like, okay, well, this and that. And I remember Trav was going to work for JT at the time. So he was leaving his Crossman company or something like that. And he was going to work for JT. And so it's like me, Trav, Lasoya, Rocky, I think Psalm, maybe like a Rab. And so like all of us were in this coffee shop and Trav was like, I can't touch anything because he was going to get, he had to pass a drug test to go to work for JT. And so I would love to see it through his eyes, like what he thought, because none of us were having to take a drug test or go through to work for a big company. And so like, yeah, dude, we, and I don't want to say that I was so naive to where I didn't know. And when I say Lasoya roofie does, I obviously did nothing against our free will, but yeah, man. I mean, they just show up and they just put the cups like it's, mushrooms are mushrooms, but they, basically made tea out of it. So you're just sipping on it, and then just, dude, next thing you know, it's like, woof. and it's, obviously it's a safe place because you're with your buddies, and then we were like just cruising around the canals, and like I remember, dude, for some reason they made it big there, but they love Smirnoff ices. Like remember Smirnoff ices?
Oh yeah.
And so they take like a bendy straw and you put it in, and then you may create like a funnel, and it's basically you shotgun a Smirnoff ice. I just remember like shotgunning like so many of those Smirnoff ices while on mushroom tea, and just laughing hysterically. And I remember, like I can remember like it was yesterday. Dude. I just remember Trav being there. Like he was definitely having fun and he was sipping on beers, right? But I just remember him. Like I would love to get his interpretation of it because he was the responsible one at the time. And so, yeah, it was it's so fun. I mean, thank God I'll give it to Lasoya. I mean, it's the Native American in him, but like that guy's like a walking Rand McNally nap. Like, I mean, it's crazy. We would just be in like all parts of Europe, whether it's Amsterdam or France or Germany or the Netherlands or wherever. And that motherfucker would just know where to go, like how to drive, where to go, like how to get to the hotel. And like this was before like iPhones, you know what I mean? So it was like he was like all like go to the big tree, turn right, look at the horizon, and close one eye. But yeah, he was responsible for getting us home safe most of the time, which that's ironic.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Knowing him.
Very unbelievable.
Yeah. I'd say if everybody in paintball has like this is what they're known for, you could say at a certain point of time, Lasoya was like the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world in paintball. But he was never.
Totally. I mean, he was like, he was the fucking man. Him and Rocky, like they were superstars, right? Like we were riding in their wake. You know what I mean? And like obviously the fucking ponytail, he's got fucking nipple rings and his shirt off all the time. And he was, in very good shape, and he's a good looking dude, and he was, there was an aura about him, and that that obviously he used to his advantage, and obviously the motherfucker could play paintball like there's no tomorrow. But yeah, having him, it was like, thank God we had him, because there would have been times where we would have, literally just been like lost and homeless.
Which that's what's funny is that he was the one that had to be Mr. Responsible too, because if I think of guys who just from their persona, from what I've witnessed on the outside, who would be like rock solids, it would be like you or Trav or more of those guys, like just the mature, I guess kind of the back players.
Yeah, right.
would be like
the brains.
Yeah. And so for him to be the responsible one that was like, you guys are all putting the trust in him while he's also Mr. Wildman is hysterical.
Yeah. I mean, we were, Lasoya is much, much older than all of us, by the way. He'll tell you he's not, but he was older. When I say older, he was like fucking 30, you know what I mean? We were 23, 24, right?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, he would rip it, and and I was like, dude, I didn't fucking care in the world. Like, I wasn't the captain, I wasn't running the books, I wasn't in charge. Like, just tell me where to go, I'll do that, right? And and he definitely, we had an absolute riot, dude. This one time we were in, I don't know if it was fucking, where was it? I want to say it was, I think it could have been Amsterdam. Like we raged one night, or maybe it was either Amsterdam or Sweden. And like and Ed didn't go. This is on Avalanche, and Ed didn't go, but we obviously had the credit card, right? And so we have to get, we rent cars and whatnot. And it was like me, John, Rocky, like the crew, me, John, Travis, Rocky, Chris, and Psalm and Rab. And we had rented cars, and John was driving at one point, and then he parked the car somewhere. We went and raged, and like we couldn't find the car ever again, right? And literally left the car somewhere. So Ed might have had to buy a fucking car in Amsterdam or wherever the hell we were. Just left it, and then but we had the keys. And then somehow, like, John lost his passport, but then we found it. But John was so fucking hungover that he stayed in the hotel, and so like we left John's passport at like the ticket counter for whatever, like Continental Airlines or whatever. And we couldn't communicate, right? We couldn't text. We didn't have phones or anything like that. So he ultimately got to the airport and somehow had the wherewithal to like ask the front desk if anyone turned in a passport. They had it. And then he's like, yeah, like super lucky, dude, because that would have sucked. You had to go to the embassy, right? And like, John likes to be handled and have things taken care of for him, and so that would have been really, really bad. And then I remember like John, John had like the rental car keys, and he just gave the rental car keys to the ticket counter lady, and he was like, "Hey, this is for this car, but we don't know where it's at."
And I'm leaving, so here you go.
Yeah, and it's like, by the way, Ed Portman now owns a Touareg in wherever the hell that country was, but. Yeah, dude, like there's like that. There's so much shit happen overseas that just did not happen here. That was iconic, man.
Yeah, there's that extra element in adventure, because even back in your day, if you were at an NXL event, if you're at Chicago, you're actually at some fucking cowtown in Joliet. Exactly, even if you party that night, you're partying at like the hotel bar. Like there's not really a lot of new stimulus, or like there's just not a lot of opportunity for like adventure. And then you go overseas and it's like you're never gonna fucking be there again. So you seize the day, like every fucking hour. Normally means you don't get a lot of sleep. But you just do like the craziest fucking thing, and every time you come back it's like, my God, I felt like I just lived a movie or something.
Yeah I mean it's so true, because like obviously when I was even traveling like domestically to play, you tell your buddies like, yeah, I'm going to Chicago. I mean, like, oh, you're going to Chicago? That's so cool, man. You're gonna go down like downtown. You're gonna see, like Soldier Field and Wrigley Field and go to a baseball. It's like, no, we're actually in fucking Crete. I think that's actually Indiana, or maybe it's Illinois. I don't even know, but it's like 45 minutes southeast of Chicago. Never going to see Chicago. You know what I mean? And like it's not like you're gonna go, to your point, into the city and party and Sunday. Although we did do that a few times with LaSoya, thank God. And and the same thing, it's like you go to Vegas or you go to Orlando, it's like you're not really like there, you know what I mean? But they're super fun, man.
When you play, the other thing about pro paintball, even if let's say it's a cool area like Huntington Beach or Tampa, if you're playing pro or like even semi-pro ball, or you're one of the teams that's trying to win the series in any other division, you're in like this tunnel vision where it's like the whole time you are like, wake up, paintball. It's done, scout. That's done, meetings. That's done, dinner and laundry. That's done, now like watch Go Sports, more scouting. But it's like very regimented, where it's like your 1 hour at the end of the day is just like in bed watching whatever on cable television. Probably Fast and Furious for the 800th time. And that is your entire, like your 6 to 7 days being there. But when you go to the other events, like, you've already said it a little bit that you're about the travel. Like it's not so much about the paintball, but I'm always curious because like there's all sorts of mix of guys that do different things there. Like, were you also there to like, you're not taking it as seriously as pro PSP or whatever you're doing at the time, but were you also there to like, okay, I'm going to like, teach the locals? Like, I'm going to try to bring up the caliber of competition here. Or were you consciously trying to like do that for paintball in these places as you went there? Or were you just like, well, I'm with my own team, not some Euro team
Yeah,
hiring me, so I
no,
guess
I
I'm just here to beat the
mean,
fuck out of them?
yeah, right. I mean, which we did a lot of that. No, I mean, like, yeah. So you definitely, I have some of my closest friends are still overseas. Like Darren Lane, he plays for the Rushers. He's just a magnificent dude. Like I talk to him like multiple times a week, right? And he's in England, right? And so, when we were there, because they all those teams obviously rotate through the Millennium Series. As we were there, like they would always like walking fields, right? Like they would be like, hey, in whatever language barrier there was, they would ask questions. And we were always, I mean, I personally was, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I personally would be like, hey, like this is what you're going to want to look out for here. And this is why you're going to do this. And this is what, when you're going to close from this spot. And, and like, they were very, very gracious. And even like, dude, like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times like we would, go play a team, beat the living hell out of them. And then afterwards they'd come over and be like, hey, can we get a team picture? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, and we were, obviously honored to have that, or at least I was, you know what I mean? And, and it was great to kind of, I do think that we helped, advance the caliber of play over there because,
For sure.
that's how it is. Like, if you want to get better, you got to play someone better, right? It's simple as that. It's not rocket science, right? You want to be the best, you got to play the best. And they had an opportunity to to play us. Obviously, Image Avalanche went over there a bunch. The Iron Man went over there a bunch. The All Americans went over there a bunch. Bobby and his guys went over there, a few times, and it definitely brought up their level of play and caliber. And you saw that, and that was kind of cool to see because I mean, to some degree, we were responsible for that because of you take an extra couple minutes and just, even like watching games with, those guys, they wouldn't be, what I will say about, the European players or foreign players, they weren't shy to come, sit down and talk to you. Like and obviously they've seen you in, movies and DVDs and magazines. So they were number one, they were excited to do that, but they wanted to learn as well. As like, I feel like here in the States, like, it's probably changed a little bit, but before that, like you wouldn't have like divisional teams. At least when I was playing, it might be like you didn't have like divisional teams come over and like ask questions because I don't know if it was like, they were too proud or maybe we weren't inviting enough. But I mean, I always wanted to help elevate the game. You know what I mean? Even when I wasn't, playing, we weren't playing, flying to practice or whatever. When I lived in Chicago, I'd go to Fox Paintball or go to Badlands, and I mean. Sloviak was one of the kids. Sloviak and Cody, they were on this team called Voltage, and
Yeah.
I would go indoor and fuck around with them, and then we'd go to Badland, and fuck around, and it was great to see that those two studs now today. You know what I mean? And so
True.
it's kind of cool, and I feel like, man, you got to give back. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's got a mentor. Everybody has somebody that you look up to at some point in time, throughout your career. And it's important to leave the game. And like Todd Martinez says it all the time. It's important to leave the game better than you found it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. And we need to like continue to do that just for the development of the sport and then develop for the, the young women and men that play this game because, obviously we want to keep paintball has to be progressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it'll just be static and, it'll fall by the wayside, not fall by the wayside, but it's important to kind of continue to progress.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like every bit of the way you answered that. It's good to know that you were doing like both sides of it. Cause I know from my own experience seeing certain people who travel abroad and they kind of like, they don't take on the full responsibility of it. And I get it. Like they're there having the time of their life. So I can't fully fault them. But part of me is like, hey man, you got to realize where you are. Like if you're a pro and you're getting paid to come here, you can have fun, but you can't rage too hard because like these guys don't want you to just go out there and shoot everybody for them. They also want you to like become their friend and like leave them with tidbits for when you're not with them next event.
Yeah.
And in that way, we've traveled differently because I can say this. I've never got to go abroad with my team.
Yeah.
you can't do that nowadays. So I've always been hired by a team from that area, and they
Yeah.
bring me. And for like the longest time, I wouldn't even have a beer during those
Yeah.
like 3 days of the event, because I
Yeah.
felt bad, because I'm like, man, this team just like paid a very expensive flight,
Yeah.
got my room, and
Yeah.
they're sending me home with money. I would feel very weird if I didn't like, and I would treat it just like here while the event was going on, where if we weren't playing, I'm like scouting games
Yeah.
for them. Because I know
Yeah.
that these D3 teams, they're not scouting, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I
Right.
can bring
Yeah.
it to the meeting next and be like, okay, guys, look at this is the heat map. This is what this team we're about to play is doing. They're like, oh, and we're going to do better just because like I've
Right.
done some homework that they wouldn't
Yeah.
have done, you know?
No, that's great that you have that integrity, dude. That's super important, because it would be easy, and I know there are players that do it, you know what I mean? Or that have done it, that just go over there and are like, pay me and I don't care. And like, there's a handful of Americans that are going to be over there. And so they'll just stay in that pocket, stay in the, in the comfort American zone with all the folks that have been hired to come over there and play. It's important to be with your squad, even though, there's a language barrier, even though like it ain't your homies and you don't have the relationships that you do. But I admire that about you in that regard, because it's definitely like, it's just being a good person,
Yeah.
more than anything. It's like, just don't be an asshole, man,
Yeah.
And I think it's something that, will help the game, ultimately in the long run. And there's certain guys that I think do that very, very well, you being one of them, And, again, I think that, you just gotta pay it forward, and continue to, this game is so incredible, man. It's like we've got to go all over the globe. Like I would have never, if I didn't play paintball, like I would have never, ever been to half the places I've been to, not even a quarter of them. Right. And to have that experience, and along with, making friends and, getting to play paintball, for free, and,
Yeah.
in some dope ass places, and see shit, that's, that again, you'd see in a magazine or on TV. It's just remarkable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. I think paintball is, as far as what I know, it's the ultimate teacher. Like
Yeah.
it's such a universal, just a classroom for life. And internationally, it also cultures you and teaches you like how the world really is, rather than just what you read or see on TV. But I think it teaches you a lot about yourself if you're good at like looking at somebody else as a mirror. And I always just tried to think like, okay, if I were in their shoes, what would be the coolest thing to me, or what would like not be very cool to me? And I won't put anybody on blast here, but I've been hired by a few teams in some of these like really random countries, like Dominican Republic or Costa Rica. And I've at like, oh, don't you, I've asked like, haven't you ever had like a pro down here before? And sometimes they're like, well, yeah, we've had so and so come down here to do a clinic. But then they tell me like the horror story where it's like, they hire this person, they come down, and then basically the person does like a few hour clinic and just fucks off right to their hotel room.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we get it. You're putting on the clinic we paid for you, or you're playing the event that you're guesting with us. But like, it would have been really cool if, you would have went to dinner with us or hung out,
Yeah.
or we would
just
have
hang
brought you to our
out.
favorite
Yeah.
spot. We would have showed you the localers' favorites and secrets. Instead, you fucked off by yourself with the rental car and went to the Yelp thing. And
Yeah.
I was always like, okay, I'm never going to be that person. Like, I think so much of traveling is not only you getting to learn about their world and experience that culture, but like them getting a good representation of you as a professional American player.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. You know what I mean? Because like, sure. Obviously, between, like I say it all the time, like between the lines, like obviously technique and shooting left-handed and right-handed and how to move and how to slide and like all that stuff. Yeah, obviously that's like second nature, to you. To them, it's probably not. But ultimately, half of the fun for those guys and gals is like hanging out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And doing local shit. Like they want to show you, their shit, you know what I mean, their city and their culture and their, favorite, dive bar, their favorite, taco stand, or,
Yep.
what I mean? And that's, I feel like that's important. And if you, but I do know I'm probably thinking of the same fucking people you are, but we won't name names, but yeah, that's, and like, that's, because you may never get that opportunity again. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like paintball ain't going to be here forever for you to be at the level that you are. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously you got a long runway in front of you, but at some point, you know, you'll take the shoes off, right?
Yep.
But yeah, that's awesome that you do that. And I mean, you know how impactful that is. Like, and I'm sure you know you've impacted players that you don't even know that you have. You know what I mean? And that's to me is giving back to the game. And the game, no one's bigger than the game, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter what the sport is, no one's bigger than the game. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, once again, you've got to travel with your team, but I've traveled and there's been tournaments that I've lost for the team that hired me to bring me there. But at the end of the tournament, that wasn't what they were thinking about. Like they were sharing pictures of us going scuba diving together.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's like, hey, there are other things that are just important here where, you know, like we may never get that experience again if we do it wrong, but also they're not going to get that experience again either. So you really want to leave a good taste in their mouth because the especially in a small country or like a smaller paintball community, they need every person to keep playing. And if that person went, I finally met a pro player and honestly it wasn't that cool, they were kind of a dick or whatever, and they quit, damn, like that's one less player playing in the league in that area that only has 6 teams in the league. So like you don't want to burn people out. And I take that very seriously as like just being positive and having a great time with everyone that's there.
Yeah.
While also being competitive and trying to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And I think that approach is brilliant. You know what I mean? And that's super important because the last thing you want is to have a less paintball players, right? I mean, at any level, whether it's recreationally or you know semi-pro or divisional or you know whatever. I mean, you want the sport has to grow. You know what I mean? And the only way to do that is engagement, you know what I mean, and getting people involved and getting you know advancing and progressing the sport. And that's you know you are an ambassador in that way, you know what I mean. And that's you know I feel like when you get to the level that you're at and the level that I was at, like that should be expected of us, you know what I mean, to some degree. Obviously, we all have a job to do. We all want to compete. We all want to win, but you know it's how like broadening everyone's fucking horizon and expanding the sport is part of your job. And you know again you know we got to continue to do that and as players and individuals and you know whatever. It's definitely it's important that you know otherwise you know especially like you don't want Americans to get like a shitty reputation about they're just arrogant pricks that are good at paintball but don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Which there are a lot of those, you know, and so we gotta offset those with guys like you.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, I guess a fun topic to talk about is like based on just that. I always ask people like, who was your road dog when you were traveling with, and who was also not cool to travel with, and sometimes you don't got to put that person on blast, but I'm sure you had like your typical almost frat guy American piece of shit that was like ignorant to travel with, and you could tell that locals were not taking them good.
Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, man, like I was pretty fortunate. I mean, my dogs, my road dogs, obviously was Trav, JR, Lasoya, Rocky, Rab. You know what I mean? And then like later on, like Rusty started coming around, you know, and you know Rusty is a hell of a guy to travel with, just because he's like so fucking organized, he's so responsible, and like he's a great dude. He's a lot like you, and like I've done a ton of clinics with him overseas. And you know he's that guy. Like he'll stay and talk to you until it's fucking 2 a.m. at the paintball field talking about God knows what. You know what I mean? He's a hell of a guy to travel with. You know, but as you know that as far like we had a good core. Me, Trav, Soy, Rocky, and JR and Rab. That was you know for almost 2 years. You know like. There's lazy motherfuckers like Rob's lazy, but he's the funniest. He's the funniest motherfucker in the world, right? You know, and you know Trav's always down for a good time. You know, John, you got to handle a little bit. Lasoya is the fucking navigator. You know, so I was very fortunate in that capacity to travel with some legends, obviously, but also, because dude, like it can you spend a lot of time with somebody for days on end, and you can get on each other's nerves, obviously, and it's like I feel like we never really were at each other's throats. Obviously, during when we were playing, it's obviously you expect to win, and if you fuck up, you're called out on it. But yeah, I mean, I got as far as a pain in the ass. I don't know. I'd have to really think about that, and I would tell you. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had just so much fun. Like this is not answering your question, but like speaking of Rab, dude, we used to play it's so bad. We used to play this game called Hide from Rab, right? So there's walking fields, right? And so I remember like we used to play it all the time in Crystal Palace, and like the London Millennium was at some point for a couple of years. Like this on Avalanche, and like we like everybody knew it, like the whole team knew it except for Rab, right? And so it was literally called Hide from Rab, and we would literally like be on the fields, like walking him sorta, but like we'd be blocking him out everywhere. You know what I mean? And then when he would get close, like we'd dip away, or we'd run in the stands, and then we'd hide from him, and like he'd get so pissed, right? Because like everybody knew who we were. And then, and he'd ask like fucking like the foreigners that can't speak fucking English. And, everybody knows who Steve Rabikoff is, and so it was so funny. He would see us like off in the distance and then like take off running for us. And I remember this one I think it was a Russian guy. This one, and Rab's like a fucking truck. You know what I mean? He's a thick dude.
Yeah.
And he saw us and he took off, and there's this little tiny Russian dude like standing behind like a stand-up can or something like that. And Rab came around it and just leveled this dude. I'm pretty sure he broke his ribs.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure he broke his ribs. I'm pretty sure the guy could not play paintball that weekend because Rab trucked him. And he would just get so fucking mad at us. But it was the funniest shit in the planet, dude. It was so good. And he'd be like, "Fuck you guys! I'm not fucking playing for this team anymore." And we'd be like, and then we like bring him back in and then do the same fucking thing the next day. You know what I mean?
God, the original trolls, basically. He's like there focused, like trying to walk the field and like be in the zone. And he looks around, there's just nothing anywhere in a foreign land, no one that he can actually speak with.
Yeah, and he'd be like, where's Avalanche? And everyone would be like, oh, they're over there, over there. And like we'd fucking be like in the stands, like drinking beers, like when there's no games playing, like and like hiding and like creeping on him, and and then the other game was like Scare Rab, right? And so then we would like sneak up on him and fucking scare the shit out of him. Poor guy. I mean, he's probably gonna have a fucking heart attack, but yeah, it was that shit was like that. I mean, I can remember just dying laughing. Like my stomach would hurt. Like we would laugh so much about like just doing dumb shit that had nothing to do with paintball.
I could picture this. You know what? The thing that adds another even better extra layer of humor on that is it's not even like he can call you on a cell phone.
Yeah, that was
he can't find you.
Yeah, no, because we didn't. I mean, shit. We had phones, but we didn't like have them because they didn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't get the international plan over there. You know what I mean? Like I think like one dude had fucking a phone. It was like Richmond. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, it was we. Yeah, he would have like get on like the loudspeaker and be like, "You guys better come out right now, or I'm fucking leaving." And it's like, "Where are you gonna go? You can't leave. You don't have the car. You're not driving here. It's like, you're stuck, bro."
So how was that? Like, does that add an extra kind of layer of like adrenaline or like uncertainty to everything? Just because you can't just pull out the GPS or the the Find My Friend app or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like seriously, like you think about it now, it almost like it's a foreign concept. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean you didn't have an iPhone? You know what I mean? What do you mean you didn't have Google and ChatGPT and fucking everything at your immediate disposal? So but dude, that was number one. We didn't know any better, right? But two, like it made it like for real, and it did add a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of fear, a little bit of like holy shit. Especially like, European cities are not, east, west, north, south grids. You know what I mean? It's like an alley here, a cobblestone path there, and everything looks the fucking same. You know what I mean? And you can do circles, and you just had to get your bearings and this is the square. And so we're at 6 o'clock off the square. Like, that's how you remember where to go. And like, there's the fucking McDonald's. And, so that you had to be, a little bit mindful of your environment because, there was no map to pull up on your phone. Like, we were looking at a fucking map, like an actual paper map of the city. You know what I mean? And we're like, I think we're here. Could be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you the adventurous type where do you like that added element of like, holy fucking shit, we're just figuring this out as we go every day? I got to be right in the moment.
I mean, when I was that age, yeah. I mean, today, no. You know what I mean? Especially like, as like I matured through the game and you had more responsibilities, and Trav and I were running the team, and you're booking flights and fucking rental cars and hotels and coordinating airport times, and it's exhausting, right? Like that part sucks. But when I was, in my 20s, I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm down for a good time.
You're not a scheduled guy. You could be just go with the flow.
I could be, yeah, to some degree. When it came to like truly clocking in for the game, for the tournament, I would be like, listen, motherfuckers, we need to knock this out. We need to walk the fields. It's important. We're not here to get our dicks kicked in. You know what I mean? So like, show up. But then after that, I was like, let's rip it. You know what I mean? And cruise around, and and just like I was talking to the other day to somebody about, I can't remember who, but it's like, dude, like we were like. It was different than it is now, right? I mean, every single night we were fucking raging over there. You know what I mean? Because like, not to sound arrogant, we were just better. You know what I mean? Like, we were better hungover, semi-drunk than they were at the top of their game. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's I don't want that to sound arrogant, although it probably does. But we kind of knew that, took it for granted. So, and it's like, dude, we were in Europe. You know what I mean? So we were gonna, party hard, play hard, and work hard. You know what I mean?
And since you didn't have like Google Translator right in your hand, I mean, from what I know, you're a pretty outgoing dude. You're charismatic, but did you like trying to meet people and dealing with the language barrier?
Yeah. I mean, the first time we went to France, dude, I was like, holy fuck. Like, how are we going to survive the next 5 days here? Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not like, now, like I went to Italy in the summer, and we were there for almost 3 weeks because I was in between work, and I tried to learn enough dialogue to, where's the fucking restroom? Where's the bar? Where's the, this and that. But back then, dude, like, we didn't take the time to do any of that. You know what I mean? We were just like, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like, good luck, Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, what I will say about, the culture over there, fuck, dude, most Europeans can speak pretty damn good English. You know what I mean? Even in Asia can speak enough English, better English than I can speak fucking Spanish. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so that definitely helped, break the language barrier. But we would know, like, thank you and hello. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But we should have probably done a better job of trying to learn a little bit more of the local dialect. But we were young and dumb. But yeah, it was fun just to, it's like, and obviously we stuck out like sore thumbs, dude. Like, so, like, Avalanche. Like, Jeremy Solm and John Richardson worked for this company called Alpha Numeric in Mecca, and they borrowed a lot of clothes from the warehouse for the entire team. And so we were all dressed like, fucking skaters, or like baggy, or, hoodies, and like Mecca and Alpha Numeric. We stuck out like sore thumbs, right? So they knew we were Americans, right? And so it was like, we didn't try to blend into the culture at all. Like, hey, we're here, but yeah, we could have done probably a better job of being a little bit more prepared and maybe honoring the local culture.
Yeah, I feel that. I always feel the same. Like in Amsterdam, everybody looks European, but it's very easy to spot the Americans and the British folks.
Yeah.
And it's also demeanor too. Like, those two groups of people are generally the least mindful of everyone else around them. Like, they'll just be loud and not give a shit. You know what I mean? There's not like hey, other people are trying to relax or have a good time here too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a funny cultural difference from here to like pretty much everywhere else.
100%. 100%.
Did you guys, back then before translators, would you guys and your team try to like hit on girls or
Oh yeah, I
get in
mean,
long
and there
conversations
was,
with people?
yeah, all, I mean, obviously Lasoya,
Yeah.
and yes, but it was fun because like number one, like never how we didn't obviously not know what the hell they were saying. You know what I mean? Like yeah, you obviously you can read body language and whatnot, but like and who knows if they knew what the hell we were saying? You know what I mean? But it definitely added a layer of complexity to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like we always had, what I will say is because we, obviously Avalanche, I mean, like we were big name teams. Like I feel like we always had like not a handler, like we always knew somebody or somebody wanted to know us that was fluent and lived and was a local that would kind of be
uh,
with us. You know what I mean? So we were kind of, we, it was luxury for us because they, you know, would be able to communicate for us and or navigate for us, and that definitely was a perk that I don't think ordinarily everybody would have.
True.
So that was one, and it was like everybody was chomping at the bit to hang out with us or Dynasty or the big teams, and so that we were kind of spoiled in that regard.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing that person would keep you guys out of, for the most part, situations that shouldn't have happened due to the translation. Like, let's say, dealing with police or something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean that is. I mean, I remember we were in Toulouse, and this was with Image. I think yeah, Image. We were in this like this is like this circle, Toulouse, France. Like in this circle, like there's hotels, bars, restaurants, and this and that. And Dave Thomas, Opie. He works for Procat or whatever it is now, Core. He lives in Canada. So I played with him on Image for a number of years, and it was like me, Lane Wright, Opie, like Lorenz Dickinson, LD, like old school, like all American, extreme Image guy, and like I feel like Ground Zero was there. I feel like maybe maybe even like Lockout for some reason. I don't know, but long story short, Opie's high as a kite, drunk off of his ass, and we were in some nightclub or whatnot, and there was this giant, like 6'5", 6'6", giant black bouncer, giant French black bouncer, like and just suited and booted, right? You know what I mean? And Opie's like fucking drunk on high off his ass and like fucking like slapped him in the chest or something like that, and like
God.
probably should have been wrapped up like a pretzel and killed. Um, we like whoever he was with at the time, like one of our handlers, like got him out of there. And I remember like Opie, we got Opie out, and the bounce. I remember the bouncer like running out, and it's like, "Who the motherfucker? Who the motherfucker?" Like was going to rip Opie's head off, like literally rip his head off. And I feel like either Lane or LD got like took him down an alley or something like that, and then like the whoever we were with like that was fluent French, maybe it was Laurent, who knows, and definitely prevented Opie from one getting killed or thrown in jail. And it was that. So again, to circle back, that was kind of a perk that we did have, just having the ability to have somebody sort of navigate, translate for us, and it was like us being lazy too. You know what I mean? Like we didn't really put forth the effort that was probably required to, participate in the culture and learn a little bit about it. But
Yeah.
just spoiled Americans, man.
Yeah. I mean, plus you're young. Like, if
Yeah.
you were to go back now, it'd probably be like, let me culture myself a little and do this better. But
Yeah.
in your 20s, it's like you probably get told the week of, like, hey, your flights are covered, going to this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And you have other shit going on. You're dealing with kids stuff back home.
Yeah.
So you go there and it's like, all right, I'm just going to take it as it comes, not really think about preparation.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. Spot on.
Yeah. So is there a particular story that you think is like your favorite of all time, the most crazy shit happened during this particular event, or just the most unique that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I mean, God, dude, there's just so many good ones. You know what I mean? I would say um, playing like Portugal was pretty awesome. I won it. We were an image. Rich Telford, Davey Williamson played with us, um, and I think we beat. Trav was on Avalanche at the time. We beat Avalanche and the All Americans. I remember like we were all staying in the same hotel, and it was a very difficult win. But I remember like going back to the hotel and like they closed like the bar because it was like Sunday, you know what I mean? But then I'm pretty sure like we broke into the bar and like started making cocktails and like we owned it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like celebrating and started inviting our friends in, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure we got thrown out because of that. Or no, we broke a bunch of shit, which that was always good.
Smart.
Very smart. Richmond had like a massive bill, which thank you, Richmond, for that. Took care of that.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it was like we probably should have been kicked out of the country, but it was just there were just so many times like that, you know what I mean, and like there, I mean, shit, dude, like even here, you know what I mean, like Vegas, right? Like Mike Peveril started hanging around Infamous, like we just like go to fucking bottle service till fucking 5-6 in the morning, and then literally like roll straight to the field, like people are throwing up before the game. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
Like literally, like the huddle would just reek of booze. You know what I mean? And it'd be like, but fuck, somehow we would figure it out and pull it out. That was like that was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's like it's shitty to say, but like we were just really good at what we did, and we could, and we were young, you know what I mean? But like, I feel like there's not maybe one specific story. I'll figure one out when Chris and I come on and do it. then,
For
then
sure.
we'll really get into it. And we'll get two perspectives.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, every event was just, it's win, lose or draw. It's like you're with your homies, you're traveling around, and living, making memories. That's what it's about, really. At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I could ask you every story there is because this is like one of my favorite things in paintball is just hearing what other guys got to experience, especially the dudes like you who like pioneered it. But I don't want this to go forever. So you got stuff to do, you got a family. But I guess I'll get into just a few like the fun questions,
Yeah,
and then I'll let you get out of here.
sure.
And a lot of the reason that I like talking to guys like you, and I'll have Trav soon and Lasoya, is because I know from every time I've heard it that you guys got to do it when it was like kind of the wild, wild west. Now it's like
Yeah.
very easy to go and organize, and I can book my Airbnb in Spain from here and it's handled. And paintball is big enough that I can post on Instagram and some paintball player in Spain will say, "Hey, I have a couch for you."
Yep.
But back then you guys got to just like fly by the, seat of your pants and like, nobody's ever done this before, so here we fucking go.
Yeah.
And I always heard like just the craziest stories then of like just fights in the streets in Europe and things like that. So like, do you have a particular like crazy or most dangerous moment from international travel?
Yeah, I mean, God, I feel like we've talked about Chris a lot, but this, and I mean, we can talk about it again if we do that. In fact, but we were in France in like the square, right? And we were, I don't know, I have to, and Chris would know it better, and John knows it well. But long story short, somebody mouthed off to Chris. We're in a McDonald's, right? Or outside of McDonald's, and somebody mouthed off to Chris. Chris has got a short fuse.
Yep.
And I don't know if Chris had candy with him and somebody said something about candy, because I was fucked up too. If Chris said something about, or if this local said something to Chris about candy or made a remark about her, or if maybe Chris said something about his girl, but then the next thing you know, like Chris fucking iced this guy with a milkshake, like right to the fucking face, and like took his fries and like threw him at him, and like went through, like I feel like Chris like reached through like a window, and again like my brain's foggy on this part, but like we were like definitely, and then Chris smoked him, and then but then we were like okay, and then like right? And then we're like dipping through alleys and running around. But I did not do that story justice. But you definitely should have Chris, flesh it out, or maybe even Trav might remember it better than any of us, because Trav was always like seems to be he was responsible. But that was like the McDonald's story of Chris like smoking a dude with a milkshake and like throwing like a large fry at him, and then like I fucking popped him. Definitely was when we were like, okay, we better lay low for a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. Have you personally ever had any trouble with the law or TSA?
Never. I've never been like pulled into the room. I've never gotten anything, in my luggage that shouldn't have been in there. No, I mean, fortunately, that's. I mean, because dude, that can be a buzzkill, right? That can ruin your trip.
It's a nightmare. And you've
yeah,
never been shaken down either. The
never
old
been shaken down. No.
Wow.
I guess maybe just like the skinny white kid looks harmless, maybe. But yeah, no, I definitely was fortunate in that regard. Yeah, I think I don't think anybody. I mean, shit, we probably should have been at some point, but no, I was fortunate to never been messed with the TSA, never been shaken down, never been put in another room, never been questioned.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I figure you've done a lot of trips, and I figured at one point there's been, the cop that pulls over for like 3 miles an hour and basically keeps you for a half hour, and eventually you just have to give him all the money that's on you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that. Yeah, no, I've never been shaken down. Maybe in Mexico, but not through like travel, not through an airport. Like I feel like, again, doing a clinic in Mexico or playing a tournament in Mexico, like I feel like that may have happened, but again, we had people with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, took care of it, in some capacity. But no, I've been fortunate to not have to ever be on the bad end of that deal.
You're a lucky man. Knock on wood.
Right? Knock on wood. Yeah.
That's cool. Now this question I ask everyone and you've been to Malaysia, so I think there's a chance, but this is my favorite one to get stories from. Have you ever, first of all, did you ever rent mopeds while you were traveling?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yep.
Did you ever crash one?
Oh yeah. But in my defense, it was wet, right?
I've done the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And may have been going too fast. So
100%.
You couldn't combine those two things. I mean, I had a moped growing up. I crashed that motherfucker all the time. I mean, as a kid, right? In America, in my neighborhood, right? Let alone you put me on a moped that probably, and I'm going too fast and it's either raining or wet or it just rained, you know what I mean? And coming around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, fortunately, scraped up, but not, and probably broke a fender on the moped or like a fairing on the moped. But yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Give me the context on your worst one or like the best story. Like, where were you? How sketchy was this?
It was definitely sketch. Like we were lost. We were lost. You know what I mean? In trying to navigate our way back, and I feel it was like sort of a paved road, sort of dirt, sort of rubble, definitely wet,
loose gravel.
It had just gotten done raining there's like the sun was out, and so like there's like a little bit of a glare and like a hue coming off shit, and dude, like I was sober as the saint, you know what I mean? I wasn't fucking drunk, you know what I mean, or anything like that, and just being not paying attention, like looking at surroundings, driving way too fast, and then like oh shit, coming around a corner, and I'm almost 99% like I think this little old dude like kind of stepped out in front of me, and it was either I was gonna smoke him or I had to dip, you know what I mean? And so I just laid it down, and fortunately because it was wet, because it was sort of like mud, dirt, rock, everything, it kind of like helped the slide, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that capacity. So injuries were very, very mild, but yeah, definitely all of those elements combined is what caused it to happen.
Lucky. He lost some skin though that time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was stripped up. You know what I mean? That was fun, because then you had to you play paintball and you put pads on, and that shit just like every time you take your knee pads off, it's just ripping everything off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Elbow pads, same thing.
Well, the even just that moment of getting up is terrifying because I don't know what country you said this was in, but you're like, holy shit, if anything's broken right now, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's like a good hospital or if
Right.
there's one nearby. Like
Yeah.
it is terrifying.
Yeah, and like your adrenaline just like pumping, you know what I mean? And so like you don't like to your point feel it right away, but yeah, and it's like you're essentially in a foreign land. It's like you can't just go to like Kaiser or go to like that local hospital and be like check into the ER and give them my insurance card and be like, hey, my arm's broken. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're like, yeah, wrap it up. You know what I mean? But yeah, Ben, that definitely was fortunate to not do any more damage. Not wearing a helmet. You know what I mean? Just
Oh
like
my
stupid.
God.
You know what I mean? Just dumb.
Jeez. Well, I'm happy you're alive. And
Yeah, you and me both.
I love getting the moped stories. But man, yeah, that's a good one. Um, well, sweet. This one's a personal to you question. I wouldn't ask anybody else this, but when did you start playing darts?
With Travis, right? So like
I figured.
we would go. So I lived in the east side of Michigan, right? So just like 25 minutes north of Detroit. Trav lived a little bit west, um, like towards Chicago. And Posey would pick me up, and then we would go to Travis's buddy's house, and in the basement, like steel darts, like real darts, right?
Yep.
Um, and I was again 14, 15, couldn't drive, obviously. Um, and we would go there and I didn't drink then, but Trav would be drinking beers and drinking Jägermeister and throwing darts. And we would do that literally until like fucking 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And then Posey would drive us to practice. So we're like a quarter of the way to Chicago. Right. And so that would be when I started at that age. And then like Posey would drive us to practice, Trav would sleep, I would sleep. But yeah, it was in Travis's buddy's basement with real actual like steel tip darts, which is probably obviously they're not safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
It's sweet that the tradition started that long ago because
yeah,
he's a creature of habit. I figured you probably were the same.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I gotta imagine even because of that creature of habit thing. Did you play darts when you would travel abroad? Would you guys find like dive bars and
We
do it there too?
really didn't, to be honest. Like we may have, but I don't really recall it. Not to like the way we do now. I mean, I feel like that's like you can't go anywhere without unless there's a dartboard. You know what I mean?
It's the first thing we Google. Like we have to
Right?
find the sports bar with dartboard anywhere we go.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't think that we really did any of that overseas too much. I mean, we may have played like foosball or like fucking snooker or pool or whatever like that, bumper pool or
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that we really did. I mean, we could have, dude, but not to the capacity that we do now.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
that's cool. Regardless, I got to tell you one thing that you'll appreciate. Since that ICC event when we were all at that bar and you were there, Weasel showed up. I'll never forget it. It stuck out so much in my head. Where I forget the first person you did it to, but they shot and completely missed the board, and you were right behind them, and you just leaned in. We've all been drinking, and you were just like, "Good dart." And now that is like religiously our thing. Like we were doing it this whole event in Vegas. We were at Flight Club, and if somebody they're shooting for the 20 and they just completely missed the board,
Yeah.
like universally, like 7 people will quick to be good dart
Oh man,
in our
that's
best
great.
LB voice.
How was that? How was that Flight Club? That place looks sick. Was
Oh
it
my
cool?
god, dude, it's sick. It's such a genius, simple idea because it's like when you go bowling and you get your own lane,
Yeah.
your own little hangout table area, only for darts.
Yeah.
So there's a big bar. The place is sweet itself, but your little dart area is like real steel tips. And I'm like, well, how is it registering them? There's nowhere for us to write it.
Yeah.
There's like all these cameras and sensors pointing at the board, so it registers. And when you get a good dart, like when it knows you want a 20 and you hit it, a camera instantly films your reaction, so it gets everybody like pumped in the background.
That's dope, dude.
It's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, if anybody opened one of those as like a franchise or a knockoff version of it
Yeah.
in whatever other big city, it would succeed.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta check that box at some point. Yeah, I'm
You
sure. I'm looking forward to to Nashville. It'll be fun to see the boys again, and I'm sure we will be playing lots of darts, and we will communicate and send you pictures of good darts.
I would appreciate that very much. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to yell. Just Guinness and darts. It's a great infamous
Right?
tradition.
It is. It's so
Um,
good, and it's like it's pretty like it's great because it's like it's you talk shit. It's good for the team. You guys bond. And it keeps you from doing other bad shit. You know what I mean? And
yep,
it's a good way to decompress a little bit and
yep.
hone the skills.
And it makes the team chemistry closer because it's like you're doing an activity, but you really don't have to focus much
Yeah,
until it's your
it's
turn.
mindless.
So
Yeah,
like
right. Yeah,
exactly, it's mindless. It's like having background television that you don't care about, where you're more just there to hang out around an activity.
yeah,
And sometimes when you're done with a team meeting, everybody just goes back to their individual rooms. But
yeah,
with this team, you finish the meeting and then you go play a round or two at darts. And by the end of it, like I just feel like our team is very, very close now.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm very grateful for darts.
It's great, dude. It's relatively inexpensive to play. You know what I mean? It's like $5, whatever, for 4 people for a whole round. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yep,
pretty. I mean, flight clubs obviously probably a little bit different, but every local sports bar, it's like it's relatively inexpensive.
yep. Well, man, I could talk about darts all day, but my last question for you, and then I'll let you go,
Yeah,
is and this is my favorite one. I'm sure you learned a lot while traveling. You really get to experience the world and see what it is firsthand, rather than just what people tell you about it.
yeah,
But every time I've traveled, I always find that I got to learn something about myself in that place. So, did you ever notice in your journeys, like, learning something new about you, whether it's like what you really are gravitating towards when you travel, or I don't know, things
yeah.
that you have
No,
to work
that's a
on?
great question. You know what I mean? And I guess how I would answer that is, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And that's just you can apply that to life. It doesn't have to be traveling, but I think you're forced to do that specifically abroad because for the most part, everywhere domestically in the U.S., it's the same shit, right? You have all the same luxuries. You're familiar with your surroundings, but I do one of my biggest takeaways was learn, especially at a young age, is learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And especially, dude, like we talked about, you didn't have an iPhone at your immediate disposal, right? That you could get your way out of a jam, right? So it forced you to be creative. It forced you to be, resourceful in that capacity, and being, almost like a little bit nervous and scared, but you kind
Mm-hmm.
of learn how to deal with those emotions, and that taught me that at a very young age. And then like you would come back to your, to the States and it'd be like, this shit is easy. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah, your day-to-day life. Well,
Yeah.
dude, I'm happy. Preach, man, preach. I'm happy you say that one. Like I call that like mental resolve,
Yeah. Yeah.
that you get to learn by just kind of like having to figure it out on your own,
Yeah.
and sometimes how to just deal with like, okay, the situation sucks, but what am I going to do about it? I got to
Right.
just like either deal with it or get myself out of it. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people could use that because there's a lot of people that you travel with them, and if stuff doesn't go exactly to their agenda, like I
Yeah.
do this at this time, and then, or if they're missing something, they kind of are a little bitch about it. And you're
Yeah.
like, you're going to ruin the whole trip because of this one moment or this one item or this 1 minute. And it
Yeah.
drives me crazy.
It's a temporary moment in time, right? Or it's like, you hit the nail on the head. It's like either you're gonna be in stuck in that lane or you move. And it's like, I've always found like, you just hit everything head on, and adversity is going to come, but if you can take something away from it and apply it, to the next time, it's it's sharpening the blade, man.
Yeah, that's a good lesson, dude. I
Yeah.
hopefully more people try it out, put themselves in the discomfort
Hmm.
to gain the lessons from it and strengthen their character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one last thing.
Yeah.
I actually never knew what LB stood for.
Little Brian.
Okay, so I thought it was that, but you are
Yeah.
not little. You're like
No, I know.
you're
Well,
a big dude.
yeah. So when I started playing paintball at 11, I was not. And so when I went to the Lone Wolf Paintball was the field that we all started playing at. And when I, even playing like recreationally before even tournament paintball, there was a dude that was a ref at the field who went to the University of Michigan, his offensive lineman. His name was Brian, and he was fucking massive, right? And I was 120 pounds different wet, and I was also Brian, and so he was Big Brian, and I was Little Brian.
Gotcha. By comparison, that was the name. I see.
That's
All right. I got it now. I figured, I was like, what else would the L stand for other than little? But
right, yeah.
I had to know myself. So that's cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you just having a 2-hour conversation with me.
Yeah, brother. No, I'm honored and love what you're doing, man. Keep it up. I think that the sport needs more guys like you, and it's great to get to know you a little bit better, man. And look forward to the next time that we can meet in person and throw some darts and maybe play a little paintball together on the Infam.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm sure it will happen again this year.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you're going to come to at least one more NXL to hang out with us, maybe one that's closer for you.
Yep.
And I told Lasoy I'd be talking to him once he was like more settled in, moved in Florida.
Yep.
So I'll get you back on here soon with him and we'll share a ton more.
Love it, dude. Love it.
All right, cool. Well, see you, LB. Thank you.
All right, brother. Later, man.
Later.